It's 2026, and if you want to build a career in product management or grow in the one you already have, there is no other option. You have to become an AI native product manager. Look at the JDs right now. From big tech like Google, Amazon, Meta, to companies like CRED, Razorpay, Blinkit, they're all asking the same thing. It's not a nice to have anymore. They all want their product managers to be AI native. In 2026, if you're not an AI native product manager, you are not in the game. There are no two ways about it. So in this video, I'm going to tell you the exact roadmap on how to become an AI native product manager in 2026. Today is all about AI PMing, and it's all about how to become an AI native product manager in 2026. Right. So before we go in deep into this whole thing, the idea that I want you to understand is what we're going to study or what we're going to understand today is AI native product manager, right? Of course, 2026 is to give you a roadmap, but basically the main focus will be on this word native, right? That is going to be the main focus of what we're going to do today, and that's what we're going to understand and figure out that, okay, what's the best way in which we can build the right skill sets, what is the requirement of the market, why is it required, why is the market or why is everyone chasing for these roles, why is everyone hiring these roles. So all of those things is what we are going to cover today, and yeah, with that, let's get started. So what is happening right now in the market is what you see on your screen, right? Fundamentally, what is happening is that the PM role that used to be, right, the PM role that we all wanted to be when you are our product managers or aspiring product managers, that role is fundamentally changing, right? That is the biggest change in the market that is happening right now, right? This, to give you an example, this happened with sales a long while back, when fundamentally sales stopped being door to door or there was an option to do sales via phone, sales via WhatsApp, call, etc. So it's a similar shift that happened when you had field sales, and field sales moved to phone, right? Or inside sales as we call it, right? Similarly, if you look at another function, you can look at marketing, right? Now, marketing used to be offline, right? The word marketing itself used to mean, banners, hoardings, ads, and all of those things. But now marketing is mostly digital marketing, right? Which is Meta, Google, and spending ads there and so on and so forth, right? So essentially what I'm trying to say is what happened whenever a new technology comes and invades, right? What I mean by invades, it basically goes deep into our life. With sales, what happened was phone went deep into our life, right? Calling went deep into our life, which is why we all got used to picking up the phone. We all got used to understanding what's going on, and then we got comfortable with people selling us things on phone. Now what is happening is there is another level of this happening. What is happening now? Now the shift of sales, I'll just write sales here, is happening from phone to WhatsApp, right? So people are actually going from their phone to WhatsApp and buying purchases or making decisions there. Why? Because WhatsApp is a technology that has invaded life, right? Now, if I ask you a very simple question of what is the number one technology that is invading life right now, all of us would know what the technology is, and it is called AI, right? Artificial intelligence. Because of which the PM role, just like the other examples I gave, the PM role is fundamentally changing, right? It's being rewritten right now. And the good thing about any role getting rewritten is that it gives a very, very strong opportunity for you or anyone to lead that role, right? What I mean to say is that whenever a new stream opens up, think about it like this, right? When phone sales started booming in, people who were great at talking on the phone became more important than people who went door to door, right? That whole aspect of your physical strength of, getting on a bike or walking or spending the day out on the market and all that, that value reduced. And what value went up? The tone in which you talked, how you spoke, why, the objection handling that you did over phone and all of that. So whenever this technology that I talked about invades us or invades our lives, the respect, or I mean, respect is one part of it, but the importance of the skills kind of reorders. And the same is happening with product managers, right? What I have said, the two fundamental things. One is that whenever a technology comes in, it fundamentally changes a lot of roles. PM role is also, sufficiently changing. And what it does is that it reorders the importance of the components involved, right? So the components involved in terms of product management would be, research. The another component involved for product managers would be managing stakeholders. Another part of this would be, design. Another part of this would be tech, right? So there are so many options, or there are so many things that, would get automated or would get changed or would get reordered because of this. Right now, we're going to understand what is this reordering. We're going to understand the skills that are becoming important right now, and why and how you can build those skills as you go along in the next 45 minutes to an hour. Now, the most important thing, like I said, is that whenever a new skill comes up, it opens up gates for everyone, because you can now upskill, right? And using that upskilling, compete. If you see a lot of job descriptions, what is happening is people are not really asking for product managers anymore. They're asking for a term called as product builders, right? Or they're asking for terms like AI builders, right? So what is happening is there is a new demand, or there will be a new demand coming in, which we are going to call, or we are going to summarize as, and we're going to talk about that today, is an AI native product manager, right? And of course, this window is short because as you will see, some parts of this window have already been squeezed, right? Some parts of this upskilling have already been done to an extent where it's now an expected thing instead of, you being upskilling there. So we'll study all of that, but let's get started, right? What we're going to do in the next 1 hour, we're going to cover these 5 pieces of information. We're going to talk about what AI native actually means. I did give you some understanding of this right away in the intro. Then we're going to talk about the whole AI value chain and, understand where you fit and what your target should be. Then what is the work of an AI native PM and how you can do it. Then what should be your roadmap? What are the kind of roles that are coming through? And then what should you get started doing tonight? Now, let's first talk about the shift that I was talking about in a little more detail. Now, earlier, what a PM was supposed to do was very simple, right? A PM was supposed to do discovery, which is basically find the right problem, right? So a PM was supposed to do discovery, which is to basically figure out what problem is worth solving or not. Then it used to be work with the team, and when I say team, I mean design, developer, and all of that, to ship the product, basically to take the product to your users, and then finally distribute it, which means that take the product to users, right? Now, this was fair enough. Everyone understood that this was the requirement of a product manager, and this is what a product manager was supposed to do. And this whole spectrum started in and around 2004 and remained or kept getting better. I mean, you kept getting better ways of doing discovery. People wrote books around it. People wrote, articles around it, blogs around it, podcasts around it. So in this phase from, 2004 to around 2023-ish, right, roughly, what happened was these 3 skills that you see here, you just were expected to get better at these 3 skills, right? So the expectation was that as a product manager, you will improve these skills one by one, right? So you would improve the product discovery that you do. You will get better at how you work with engineers and how you deliver products. and then you will get better at distributing and getting more users for your product, right? That was the expectation so far. Now there is something that has changed. What is that? What has happened now is, or sorry, before that, just one more point. Why was this such a thing, right? Why from 2004 to almost 2023-ish, this remained the same? Why was a new skill not expected out of a PM? The fundamental reason is simple. The fundamental reason is that in this entire phase, the PM was never the bottleneck, right? In the process of building products, a PM was never the bottleneck in this situation. A product manager was always ahead of the curve. Your PMs used to have 10 features ready, engineers used to do 2, and then the rest 8 are in the backlog. So you were always ahead of the time, right? What you did was every time you had to take a bet, you had to get engineering bandwidth, you had to work with engineers, ensure that engineers are spending time on it, and you were never the bottleneck. The bottleneck was always the fact that engineering bandwidth will take a lot of time to build it, which is why you had to ensure this. You had to ensure that every bet you took, right? Every time you discuss something, every bet you took it in a way that it justified the time of engineering, which is why it was demanded out of you as a product manager that you spend a lot of time in discovery. It was demanded out of you that you spend a lot of time in clearing engineering doubts, making sure the delivery is great. And of course, distribution is or was still important, and it's pretty much still the same. We'll get to that in a bit. But fundamentally, what was happening was the product managers were the bottleneck. But now what has happened? Now, because of AI, because of what has come in, in AI, that overall bottleneck that engineers had is gone. Right? Now what happens is everything that you see here, right? Discovery, delivery, distribution, all of that have become faster, right? Which means that as a product manager, you don't have to think as much as you did earlier on your research. You don't have to think as much as you did earlier on working with developers, because now their speed of execution has also increased. Products like Cursor have come around, products like prototyping, Reforge Build have come around, Lovable has come around. I mean, Claude itself does pretty good job at prototyping. So all of these products have actually come around. And because of this, what has happened is the PMs can get more time to take ambitious bets, right? So essentially what has happened for entirety of 2004-ish, when PMing started booming or coming in for the first time in the US, to 2023, you had a bottleneck. I'll write BN for bottleneck, which was the speed of execution, which meant that every feature that you made took time, right? Which is why you had to be extremely cautious of what feature you make. But now the speed of execution has come down drastically, which is why you can afford to spend lesser time on discovery. You can afford to, the delivery itself is going to get faster, and distribution, which is of course scaling your product, growing and all of that, remains pretty much the same. So that fundamental shift has happened. And because of this, 4 new things or 4 major things have come up in 2026 for product managers, right? So in addition to what was expected here, which was discovery, delivery, distribution, there are 4 new skill sets that have come into the picture that you need to master if you want to get ready for native AIPM roles. Let's see what those skills are. There are 4 things. The first is to be extremely hands-on across the entire AI stack. What do I mean by AI stack? By AI stack, I mean prompting, RAG, Agentic, and Evals. These 4 things together, right? What are these things? 1, prompting, P, RAG, Agentic, tools, Evals, PRATE, PRATE. This is your AI stack, right? So you have to become a master of each of these elements. You have to understand what prompting is. You have to understand what system prompting is, what user prompts are. You have to understand how to write great system prompts. You have to understand how to write great user prompts. You have to understand what are the inner fundamentals of prompts. What is temperature, what is max thinking, what is thinking mode, what is non-thinking, all of that, right? So everything around prompting. Then you need to be a master of RAG. You need to understand what pipelines get built in RAG, what is retrieval, what is augmented generation, how does RAG work, how is an LLM, using RAG to get better answers. Agents, which is how do you build agents, how do basically how what are MCPs, how do you get agents to do things for you. Then tools, which is APIs externally. This was already available. Normal standard products already used APIs in the past, but now this has become very important because when you're having all of these things with you, right, your agents with you, RAG with you, prompt, the tools are what is going to help you keep all of this together. And then the last thing is Evals, which is how well are your LLM integrations performing, how well is everything working out whenever you're doing it. Right? So first thing that you have to understand, or the first thing that has become extremely critical for an AI product manager, is to be very, very good with all of these three. Now, when I say very good, what I mean simply hands-on, right? And I don't say hands-on lightly. What I mean, and I want to quantify this as well, you should, before you even, of course, you can get interviews before even you start, but before you even think seriously about doing AI product management properly, you should have at least 5 proper projects, and we'll talk about those project building towards the end of today's community session. But you should have 5 proper projects where you have implemented prompting, where you've implemented various kinds of system prompts, where you have tried different kinds of methods of system prompting, different kind of methods of using prompts for your product. Then if whatever is allowed or how much ever you could do, you need to have 5 examples of implementing RAG. I'll just probably remove this and write 5 here separately. So 5 examples of using prompting in your product, 5 examples or 5 implementations of RAG, 5 implementations of AI agents or 5 AI agents built, and 5 times or 5 different sets of evals written for your product, right? Essentially, what I'm trying to say is that you should have built 5 AI products, and not just any AI products, 5 production grade AI products, right? So you need to build 5 production grade AI products with everything included, right? This is the most fundamental thing that you have to do if you have to start your journey towards becoming an AI product manager, right? So just quickly recapping, the shift has changed. Now everything that a PM was supposed to do, which is discovery, design, development, launch, all of that are becoming faster because of AI. What has changed because of that? Because of AI coming in, there are 4 fundamental new skills that have come into the picture, and you have to master all of them. The first one is the most important, which is getting hands-on on each of these. Right now, when I mean 5 projects, I don't mean 1 screen projects, 2 screen projects. I mean proper projects. A great way of doing this is to create AI replicas of top products. Sorry for my handwriting. Right? Essentially, what I mean is, the best way to do this to ensure that you are not building something that's very trivial, and I see that problem a lot, right? Where you just create 1 screen, 2 screen, and you feel ki, this I'm getting used to it and I understand this and so on and so forth. Not that. Create AI versions of existing top products. For example, very simple, right? Try and understand what would be an AI version of Swiggy, right? What would you do if you had to build Swiggy as an AI native product, right? Would you recommend dishes based on LLMs? Would you route driver partners based on LLMs? Would you use LLMs? Would you have a different interface rather, where instead of selecting from a drop down or a restaurant, would you have a chat interface where the product asks you what you want to eat, and then it's going to go through its LLM and going to figure out all the restaurants and order something for you, right? So an AI version of Swiggy. Similarly, an AI version of Zoho, maybe Zoho Mail, right? So go through what Zoho Mail does and build an AI version of it, right? So that is the one of the most underrated ways of gaining a lot of confidence in building these products. You have to ensure that you don't pick something that is trivial. You have to ensure that you pick something that is important. And I know that that could be a confusing point, because you don't know what is trivial and what is big enough. So the safest way of doing this is pick big products and build AI versions of those products, right? Ensure that the product that you're building has implementations of each of these 5 PRATE that we talked about just a while back, right? So when you're building AI Swiggy, you ensure that there is a way by which you have enough system prompts to play with. When you're building that, ensure that there is a rack pipeline that you've built for something. Ensure that there is an agent implementation that you've done within Swiggy. And similarly, for tools and evals as well. We'll dive into evals in a bit more, right? But basically, 5 AI production grade AI products. Best way is 5 replicas of existing products reimagined with AI, right? It can actually be a pretty interesting hook for your LinkedIn, pretty interesting hook for your Twitter, etc., where you can talk about this as well, and it can catch the eye of recruiters if you've built it well. That's number 1. Number 2, and this is a new skill that has come out in the market, and probably the first time there is a technical skill for a PM. Right now, so far what used to happen was a product manager, all the skills that you needed for a product manager were not technical in nature. What I mean by that is, when I say tech, I actually meant that what I mean by that is I meant a hard skill, right? Because most of product management was understanding softer parts of skill, right? Was understanding how to conduct an interview, how does design work, but actually using design, actually writing code, actually using Google Ads, etc. They were not always a product manager's responsibility. But for the first time, there is actually a technical concept that is now expected to be done by a product manager. So now there is a concept called Evals, which is a short for evaluations, which basically means, is your LLM that you're baking, let's say you made an AI version of Swiggy, is it performing correctly or not, right? That whole picture has become a part of what you as a product manager own. Earlier, Evals used to be QA. Right? Because if you remember, if for example, let's take the example of Amazon and let's remove AI from the picture. Now, to ensure that everything in Amazon is working fine, and if there is no AI, what would you do? You would go to a QA, the QA would test everything, and then they would go ahead and give a sign off, and then the project or the feature is going to get released, right? But now that has changed. Why? Because when you're using AI or when you're using LLM, AI I'm just using for LLM together, what happens is now the same question can be answered in different ways by the LLM, right? Something that is called as Evals, which is a more deeper concept in terms of how you picture it out and how you build it and so on and so forth. We'll not be able to cover that here. Maybe later we'll do some community session sometime to do that. But essentially, Evals are a way by which you evaluate what your product's performance is. You evaluate metrics related to it, and you ensure that the outcome that your AI product gives is right. For example, I can never risk the fact that if I built an AI Swiggy and if there is a user who is vegetarian, I can never risk the fact that my AI Swiggy recommends something non-vegetarian to that person, right? It's going to be a big problem, right? So what are those use cases that can come in? How as a product manager you can solve them, how you can implement. There are multiple techniques to write evals. There is human evals, code evals, LLM as a judge, multiple things. We won't be able to deep dive into evals. It's a separate 4 or 5 hour topic on its own. But essentially evals are yours now, right? The product manager is expected to write and get evals implemented. The PM is still not supposed to implement the eval, but there are a lot of things that a PM is supposed to do in evals now. right? So whenever you're planning your part, you have to ensure that, which means that whenever you're building your 5 products that are here, you also need to write or implement 5 evals for the product as well, right? So first thing, building 5 AI replicas of popular products so that you get hands-on the entire AI stack. Second, writing great evals for all those 5 products. Third is agents, right? Why? Of course, I've mentioned prompting RAG agents evals in the first one as well, but I'm breaking down evals and agents once again because they are most important, right? The third piece is agents. What agents have you built, right? Have you built voice agents? Have you built, for example, for Swiggy, what is the agentic behavior can you do? Can you build an agentic behavior that coordinates, delivery with the delivery personnel if they are running late? Can you build an agent on Zoho Mail that can clear out your emails and actually send emails on behalf of you and take care of your inbox, right? So what are the agents that you can build? Again, very easy to link this back to this, right? Because you're building 5 products, and trust me, when you pick popular products, right, and you actually evaluate them properly, you will see that each of these products have great opportunities for you to ship RAG, great opportunities for you to ship evals. I mean, evals of course will always be there, but great opportunities for you to build an agent as well. So whenever you're doing this, the third thing that you have to ensure is that you have given enough time on agentic implementation. And finally, the last skill or the last piece of this entire puzzle for an AI native PM is responsible AI, right? Things like data security, things like what happens when things don't go right, what happens when incorrect information is relayed, what happens when unsafe information is relayed, what happens when private data, personal data gets leaked, what are the ways in which you can prevent that, right? So those are like the 4 major skills of what's going on. The responsible AI is more about knowledge, right? It's less about getting hands-on and more about knowledge, about understanding what are the methodologies or what are the implications, how do you ensure that you implement this. But the remaining 3, right, which is evals, AI stack and agentic, these are what you need to build, and you need to build 5 AI grade, production grade AI products for this, right? A little more on that later, but we'll move further in this community session. Right. Now, one big confusion, right, when I say building AI products is what do I build, right? Now, I've given examples, right? I gave AI version of Swiggy. I gave an example, AI version of Amazon, AI version of Zoho, AI version of PayPal, whatever, right? Of course, multiple examples exist. But there's a big confusion that is there in a lot of people's mind, and that's important for us to clear. When I say AI version of products, right, I don't mean AI enabled, right? I mean AI native. What is the difference between these two? Let's find out. Now, when AI came in just at the end of, when the normal PM started changing and growing towards AI PM, when AI PM started coming in, the first thing that came in was the tools. Now, this is very similar to what happened in the past as well, right? When product management started, the first thing that a PM was expected to understand was tools, right? And that is why, eventually TPMs are expected to know Jira, they're expected to know Asana, they're expected to know Figma, and so on and so forth, right? Because tools are the first thing that go viral, or the tools are the first thing that people start learning whenever they start any new field, right? So when AI started picking up, the first thing that came through was tools, right? Tools like ChatGPT, tools like Claude, Lovable, V0, Replit, Reforge Build, you name them, 11 Labs, you name them, whatever these tools were, right? But one fundamental mistake happened here, or a lot of people make that mistake, that is they equate these tools to AI product management. Right? That's absolutely wrong, right? AI product management is not about using AI tools, right? Very, very clearly remember, big takeaway from this session, AI product management is never about using AI tools. AI tools being used is two different things. I'll help with a simple flow chart, right? This is a PM, right? And this is an AI PM, right? Now, both these people, their job is the same. What is their job? Their job is to provide user value and of course to provide business value. Of course, that's what a PM is there for, to provide value to your users and value to your business. But there's a fundamental difference in these two. What is that fundamental difference? The fundamental difference is that the AI PM uses LLMs to give this user and business value. Now, using LLMs and using tools are two completely different things. Using tools are just a PM or an AI PM becoming more productive, right? That's why I've written it at the top. This layer of them becoming more productive versus the layer of them giving more user value are independent, right? They are not the same, right? It's almost like saying that, let's assume that there's a salesperson, right? Now there is a salesperson and both of them are doing field sales, right? One of them goes walking, right? One of them walks and does their stuff, and they are able to give their users value and sell whatever they want and all of that. The other one has got a bike, right? But both walking and via bike, they're still going to the same user and giving the same value. The AI tools are just that bike. It makes the salesperson's job to get to that sales, the customer that they're trying to sell to, makes that job easier. Similarly, the tools that you see or the tools that you find make the job of a product manager easier, but does not mean that it translates into AI product management, right? You don't change the nature of the salesperson by saying that, hey, because the salesperson was using bike, I'm actually going to name them bike salesman. No, they're both still salesmen. The fundamental difference will come when the methodology or what salesman A versus salesman B are using to sell, that changes, right? So that is very, very important for you to understand. First thing, key takeaway, AI PM is not about using AI tools. Using AI tools is a completely different thing and it is commoditized. What do I mean by commoditized? What do I mean by commoditized is, now if you are not really knowing all these tools, you are actually very, very far behind. Everyone is already knowing the tools. Everyone knows how Lovable works. Everyone knows how Claude works. Everyone knows how GPT works. Everyone has their set of prompts. Everyone understands what projects are. Everyone understands what custom GPTs are and everything, right? There is no alpha. When I say alpha, what I mean is there is no, you cannot gain any advantage by being good at tools anymore. It is actually expected that a product manager needs to know these tools, because the tools were never the main piece of AI PM anyway. The tools were only making someone more productive, right? It's like saying that how when Excel came into the world, it was mandatory for people to know Excel, right? Because Excel changed everything. It's the same thing. It's now if a PM comes in and says that they are not well versed with Claude, they are probably at least 10 months, 15, 20 months behind their peer who has been using Claude for their work for the last 2 years or so, right? So the first thing that you have to understand is AI enabled is not AI native. What does AI enabled mean? AI enabled means using AI tools, right? I see this all the time where people come in and say that, hey, we've been using Lovable for all our work in the last 10 months or so. I know what AI product management is. Big mistake. AI PMing and using AI tools are two absolutely different things. Keep them as far as possible. Using tools is now, I know it might sound a little too much, but it's the basics, right? It's almost like using Jira. It's almost like using Google Docs, right? That is the level of expectation that is there in the market right now. And I'm sure most of you would already be there, right? Most of you would have already spent a lot of time on GPT, Claude, whatever tool you use otherwise. So then what is AI native, right? If using AI tools is not AI enabled, what is AI enabled? What is AI native? AI native is building the product with AI at its core. What I mean by AI is with LLMs at its core. So the examples that I gave you, right, which is if I'm building an AI version of Swiggy, then the product is still the same value, which is it's giving food to me at my home. But the core building of that product has happened by AI. What I mean by that is that the decision of which dish is going to get ordered, the decision of which restaurant is it going to get ordered from, the decision of what is something that will satisfy my mood for food today the most, compared to just because of what I ate yesterday or what my calendar was today, and so on and so forth. Now all of these decisions are being made by AI, and that is real AI PM, right? In the program we actually call this the AI hole, right? Which is basically places inside traditional products where existing users brain is replaced by AI, right? So a simple way to think about what AI native PM is: AI native PM are AI native product management is product management where you build products with user flows powered by AI. Right now, when I say AI, I'm saying AI loosely, but I mean everything. I mean LLMs, Agentic, system prompt, RAG, whatever, right? So essentially that is an AI native product manager, right? So what is an AI product manager? Basically AI first about the entire workflow. So your user flow that you have, right? For example, what is Swiggy's user flow? Swiggy's user flow is open the app, check out what's going on in the app in terms of the restaurants available, select a restaurant, select masala dosa, check out, wait for the order comes in. Now this workflow itself will be powered by AI in an AI native product, right? Great examples of AI native products are what? Granola. I don't know if you've used Granola or not, but what Granola does is that it transcribes your meetings and creates notes out of them, right? So very simple if I take that example, but before that I'll just zoom out and open Granola's website so that you understand what Granola does. So this is what Granola does, right? Let's assume that you are having a meeting here. What Granola does is it is able to transcribe this meeting and convert this into notes and action items, right? Very simple use case of this. But let's understand what makes Granola AI native, right? What makes Granola AI native? What is the user flow before Granola? What is the user flow? You have the meet. Then from the meeting, what happens is the conversation happens inside the meeting, right? Then you note key points and then you review them later, right? That's the flow. Now, what has Granola done? Granola has replaced the make key point or note key points, note key points by AI. So a core user flow, a core user task has been replaced by AI, right? So that is what an AI native product is. Now you can have smaller pieces, bigger pieces. For example, a PM at Swiggy just automating the call to the restaurant to ensure that the order is confirmed or not, or to send in, let's say, very simple example, right? I'm sure you all would have seen inside Swiggy when you order, you see a space where you can actually send your instructions. You can tell the restaurant that, hey, I don't want to eat spicy, or, give me some extra salad or whatever, right? So if a product manager at Swiggy, now typically what would happen is this is written. Now this will be visible to the restaurant. Let's say this is the restaurant and this is the user. This will be visible to the restaurant maybe as a notification or whatever. Now, if a product manager at Swiggy replaces this interaction with AI, right, which could be maybe by giving the restaurant an AI generated call saying that order number 125,408 requires less spice. Please communicate to the kitchen. This is an AI native implementation because otherwise the user would have been seeing that. There was a chance that they might have missed, or there was a chance that they would have not missed, whatever it was left to chance. But now that core user flow has been replaced by AI, which is why all the support bots that you see right now, I'm sure you might have seen or you might have experienced, plenty of companies have support bots, calling bots, and all of that with AI. So what are they doing? They are replacing AI user flows. They're replacing user flows with AI. And that is what an AI native PM is, right? So important to understand that, AI tools usage is basics now. It's expected for everyone to know the basics of those tools, not the tools by basics now. What really makes an AI native PM is someone who builds a product where a core user flow, big or small, has been replaced by an LLM. So that means that AI first about the workflow, AI is at the core, and then it's designed for AI systems, right? Of course, this itself is a big concept, but like I said, it's designed for agentic systems. It means that there is an automatic call that is placed. There is a voice that goes to the restaurant or user or whoever. It's spoken in a human form. It ensures that it's noted down and so on and so forth. Similarly, what I mean by probabilistic is typically LLMs, right? You've used ChatGPT. You put out the same question to ChatGPT. It may give you different answers. So the system has to be designed using that understanding, because I am using an AI version of Swiggy, but day one, Swiggy suggests me something else. Day two, based on the same input, Swiggy suggests me completely different things, right? So basically you have to design it like that. So that is what an AI native product is, right? So if you're using a tool, then it's not AI native. AI native is about judging where to integrate LLMs, how to integrate them, what flows to replace by AI, and then building that product end to end, right? That is what you need to think about it, and you need to think about it honestly. But one big myth that I want to debunk with this is that you have to ensure that you're not getting satisfied by using AI tools and thinking to yourself that I am making progress with AI. If you're getting stuck at the AI tools level, it means that you're great at that level, but everyone else is moving fast. Everyone else is moving ahead. And that is what we'll discuss next, right? So the next part of what we'll discuss is to understand where AI products are, right? Now that we've understood that the core AI products that we have basically replace user flows with AI. So what kind of products exist, right, in this ecosystem that enable this happening, right? Let's look at that. First is the applications layer, right? Now this is where we are, right? This will basically be your Notion AI. This will be Granola. This will be, ChatGPT. This will be Anthropic, Claude, let's say. I'll just write Claude, right? And all of that. Now, another big misconception that a lot of people have, right? And we've had that a lot of people in the program as well and otherwise. When I say Claude, right? Or when I say ChatGPT, people start to think about the companies Anthropic and OpenAI as a single entity with Claude, right? I'll tell you what I mean by that, right? Claude is an AI product. What do I mean by that? If I just open Claude here, let me open Claude. Let me hide this. Claude is a simple AI product that allows me to chat with a model behind it, right? So what is happening here? Let's assume the user flow here is that I was, as a user, trying to find answers to my questions. I would probably read a book. I would find a user. I would find, someone who will tell me those answers and all of that. Now what has Claude done? They have said that, hey, you are going to get these answers from here. But it essentially means that there are two things at play here. What are those two things? One of them is, of course, Claude itself, which is Claude.ai, right? Which is an application. And the other is Opus 4.8. Let me just open it here and show you. Do you see this? Opus 4.8 high. What is Opus 4.8 high? Opus 4.8 is sorry, I deleted that by mistake. I'll just write it again. There is Claude.ai, which is an application. What does this application do? This application allows you as a user to interface with Opus 4.8, which is a model, right? Now, because the parent company, Anthropic, builds Claude AI as well, which is the Claude website and app and everything, and builds the model as well, people confuse these two and try to think that they are the same. I'll repeat once again, and I'll take the other side of it. If you take ChatGPT, right? ChatGPT is an application that allows us to interact with GPT's models. Let's say we'll put the latest model. The latest model is 5.5. Because both ChatGPT and GPT 5.5 are built by OpenAI, you start to think of both of them as one homogeneous unit. But I want to help you to understand this is where the AI PM lives. This is not. So when you think about, your dream of, working at, let's say, Anthropic, OpenAI, and all of that, this is a layer that you will not be able to work. Why? Because this requires, PhDs. This requires extremely high expertise in data science. This requires expertise in neural networks and so on and so forth, right? That is very difficult to get unless you're qualified in that game. So applications is basically ways by which products are built on top of models, right? So for example, the example that we saw just ago, granola, right? Now what happens? Granola is run on models. These models can be provided by someone else, mostly the top frontier models it's called, which is the top big models. They are Gemini, Grok, GPT, Opus from Anthropic, etc. But these applications are basically places where your user flow gets replaced by AI. Extremely simple mental model to understand. Wherever an LLM is replacing a user flow, it's an AI product and it's an AI native job. Everything else falls under other categories. What are these other categories? One is services, your AI consulting that Infosys is doing, Accenture is doing, TCS is doing. They're all trying to do AI consulting, which is basically you are implementing AI for your for other people, right? So for example, Accenture's AI wing would find a client, let's say a mid-sized company in the US, and they would implement AI products for them, or they would build AI products for them. While it's closely related, which is why I've written adjacent here. So these two are closely related, but it's still a services role, right? It's not a core product role. You are not owning the customers itself. The other two are well ignored, right? Just ignore these two. No need to see them, right? One is models, which is how do the models work. Of course, you should know that, but these are your frontier labs, right? Your Grok, ChatGPT, Gemini, Anthropic's model, Opus, Sonnet, all of that. And the last is the infrastructure. Now, this is basically your NVIDIA, AWS, people who give GPUs, right? Again, not really worth our understanding. What is most important for us, where we play, are applications. And what are these applications? These are AI native applications, which means that the definition that we've learned is still valid, which means that the definition is that there has to be at least one user flow that is replaced by AI. I'm using this as the replaced icon for now, right? This is the definition. You can evaluate any AI product. You can evaluate, for example, Notion AI, right? Now, what does Notion AI do? Notion AI, if you have a Notion document, Notion is basically a document taker where you can collate a lot of your work. What does Notion AI do? It can compress all of your document into a summary, right? Now, this was a user flow. Earlier, a user would read through the document, maybe note or highlight what is important, and then create a summary out of that by typing. Now that user flow has been replaced by Notion AI, which means it's an AI native product, right? So this is one thing that you have to understand. I hope you've understood what an AI native is, and also don't confuse, because OpenAI builds GPT model as well as ChatGPT. Don't have to confuse. ChatGPT is the application. GPT 5.5 is the model. Right. Quickly moving on to understand, where we are and understood. So AI enabled, this is the basic now, right? Expected out of everyone. If you are not here, then you need to pull up your socks really fast and spend a lot of time getting really good at tools, because this is just using AI tools to do your job better. Applied AI or AI native is where we want to be. This is where core user flows are being replaced by LLMs, and that is what you are going to build. Core AI are people who build the models and infrastructure itself here, which is something, like I said, requires academic expertise, right? So that's something that you will have to be, your college or your masters or whatever is there would have to be aligned with this for you to take that direction. For most of it, the direction has to be AI native product management or applied AI product management, right? Now, of course, what I have tried to understand, I've already explained you this, but every AI product has a simple thing. There is a way by which a user flow exists, right? Now, this user flow is then fed into, a system prompt, basically the prompt engineering that we talk about. That goes into a model, and then that outcome is evaluated, and then finally it is shown to the user. Right? So any AI native product, like I mentioned, basically replaces an user flow with an LLM. This slide tells you how it happens. It basically happens where you take the user input. So you start with the user flow's first input, then you put in a prompt based on that input to a model, and then you evaluate it via evals, and then you show it to a user, right? Of course, not enough time to go into the depth of this and not the topic of what we are discussing today as well, but just to help you understand the broader anatomy of how this works. Right. Now, what you have to understand is, of course, you have to start, apart from knowing and getting hands-on on this, you have to start understanding the vocabulary. So you have to understand what model is, inference is, training is, prompting, fine-tuning, RAG, vector databases, retrieval, latency. There are hundreds of this. There is a bonus cheat sheet for you with this video. Once it's uploaded on YouTube, you're going to get it, which is where I have created what a 45 pager cheat sheet of all the terms that are relevant for AI product managers and what they mean. So it's actually a pretty nifty one. So hopefully you like it. So I'm going to be putting that out in the YouTube. Just subscribe to the channel if you want to, and so that you understand that. But all of that is going to be available. So this is first thing with the vocabulary, and then of course how you need to build it. Right now, like I said, the first thing that you have to understand is try and understand what your fundamentals are. So ensure that best way to build these fundamentals is to start understanding top products, right? Like I mentioned, pick up 5 top products that you are going to improve, then apply the AI piece that we just discussed, which is which user flow can be replaced by AI. Try and understand what can be the evals that can be implementation. Of course, you will have to study it. It's not like I said that implement evals and you'll be able to do it. You will have to figure out a way by which you learn that and then do it. Then implement agents, and then of course, finally take it to market, right? So the best way of building this AI native stack is to start building AI replicas. So like I said, a few examples I can give you that are very interesting. I'm not going to tell you where you can implement AI into this, but I'm going to give you a few examples that you could do. You could do an AI version of a product called as Pocket FM, right? Which is basically an audio app around, stories and all of that. They're doing pretty well. So an AI Pocket FM is the first idea that you can pick, and you're free to pick up your own. I'm just giving you 5 so that you have some ideas to start with. Number 2 is an AI version of a product called PRATE Puja. Now, PRATE Puja is a restaurant billing software. There is another product that we built that you can check out, which is called Zyka, or actually you can check out PRATE Puja, which is basically a software that allows you to bill to restaurants, right? So that is an AI version of that. is a great idea. There are so many workflows that you can replace and get hands on with AI there. Number 3 is an AI version of another product that is for I don't know if you guys follow it or not, but an AI version of ESPN Cricinfo / Crickbuzz or whatever sports app you are following, right? If you don't follow a sports app, it's fine. Just open it. You will understand what it does. Basically, an app that tells you the score of matches that are going on, right? So an AI version of ESPN Cricinfo, an AI version of Crickbuzz, AI version of a sports app. That's a great idea. It has got, you will have to implement RAG, you will have to implement agents, your evals have to be extremely correct, multiple things that you could do. But yeah, you try it out. I'll not, give you more hints there. Idea number 4 is, we already discussed this, but putting it again here, an AI version of Swiggy, which is food delivery. You can pick Swiggy, Zomato, Amazon, Zepto, Blinkit, anything is fine. I mean, basically quick commerce, e-commerce is what you could pick as this. And then number 5 is an AI version of CRED, right? Now, of course, CRED does a lot of things, so not everything is required, but at least taking bank statements, figuring out expense. Actually, within CRED, there is a feature called CRED Money. You can create an AI version of that, right? Not the entire CRED. CRED has got a lot of things that it does, right? So these are 5 examples that I would want you to pick to get ready for your AI nativeness, trying to understand. Maybe pick any one of them. Pocket FM is into entertainment. Paid Puja is B2B SaaS. Cricinfo is consumer product. Swiggy is another consumer product. CRED Money is fintech, right? So I've given you like 5 different ideas that you can pick. It's up to you which one you want to take. But start with one. Start with the fundamental of that product, which means break down the user flow, figure out which part of that user flow you can add AI to, which is your AI product sense. Then write some evaluations. You will have to study what evals are and then write evaluations for this. Figure out if there is an agentic design that you can implement, and orchestration. Orchestration is basically how these agents talk to each other, and then figure out how you're going to take it to market or what your go-to market is going to be. Once you're done with these 5 products and you've built this, that is when, from a skill perspective, you're actually pretty good, right? That is when you are in a place where you've upskilled and you have enough for the AI native piece that we have been talking about. Right. So that is basically how you go from, wherever you are into AI native. Of course, use AI as a partner, right? So ensure that, this is the one. So ensure that you are, what is this? Yeah, this is the one. So ensure that, you are using AI as a partner. So think about this when I say, for example, the product fundamentals, right? What a lot of people do is they would look at a product. Let's say we've said that, hey, make AI Pocket FM. They would go to Claude and say, how can we make an AI version of Pocket FM? It's fine. Claude is going to give you an answer, but it's not going to help you with your understanding. And when in an interview, someone will come and ask you that question of how did you implement this? You cannot say Claude at that time. You will have to talk about your thought process. So when you're building it, don't build it blindly and say that, okay, everything I'm going to use an AI to tell me, I'm going to use that and that is how you're going to get, because it shows. When you get there and you are quizzed in an interview, it's going to be very obvious that you haven't really spent a lot of time. It's just that, you've built it via an AI tool, right? So 50-50, half of it you, half of it AI, and you're going to get a really good outcome, right? So like I said, the roadmap is very simple. Core PM, of course, should be great. Then learn AI practically. How do you learn AI practically? You basically build and ship proof of work. I've said what are these 5 replicas of existing products should be shipped. If you think there are other interesting ideas, right, ship them, right? If you want to build a health app related to your Apple Watch, right, using an LLMs, great idea. Think about ideas that you could do. Package it all onto a website, onto your portfolio, and then use that for your applications. Right now, like I said, the biggest delta is that people are looking for AI builders, right? And this is not just me saying it for the sake of saying it. This is for me discussing with several recruiting managers and people and so on and so forth. What is happening is people are looking for this, And the consistent feedback that they get is that the work or the proof of work is underwhelming, right? Which means that there is a big chance for you to actually do well at this and overwhelm or help those people to make a big decision, right? Or to make a decision to hire you, right? So once again, build AI native proof of work. Right now, there is a gap in the market. There are not enough top level AI product builders, especially in India and US itself. The feedback from recruiters and hiring managers, etc., is that, whenever we get profiles, they're a little underwhelming. So they're not very happy with the kind of profile. So if you are able to build and ship this work, build a great portfolio, get visible, there is a great chance that you can actually make it. Right. So just to recap what we've done today is we started with understanding how the PM role is changing. Then we went and understood, what AI native itself is. We understood how you can build that concept. What are the 4 pillars? Then we talked about how to actually work as a AI native PM, how to figure that out. Then we talked about how you can find out those 5 ideas and build it. And now it's up to you. Right? You have to take this. No amount of these sessions, anything can help. Of course, these things can help augment it. These things can help give you guidance, help, whenever you're stuck. But the move has to be made by you, right? Because one thing that I always say and I always tell is that at this point, especially with AI, you have to become undeniable. What do I mean by undeniable? What I mean is that your work should be so good that people just become, undeniably good. It becomes like, hey, this is just so good. I cannot ignore. I have to shortlist this guy or this girl, right? If you got value from this video, please click subscribe. It helps us a lot. I also run an AI product management program where I help you become an AI product manager in 90 days. In the program, you get the world's best AI curriculum for product managers, unlimited one-on-one mock interviews and discussions with me, building the exact portfolio we talked about in this video, and extremely hands-on AI learning with live sessions and weekly hackathons. The link to apply for my program is in the description below. If you're interested, please check it out.